The Empire was strong. It ruled many stars, many worlds, and many people. For a long time, no one had dared to fight it. The Empire believed it had nothing to fear. But one day, something strange appeared at the edge of its space. It was just one ship. A single human ship. It came from a quiet part of the galaxy, a place the Empire no longer watched. The ship moved slowly and silently. It did not send any message. It did not answer when called. It just stopped at the border. The scanners showed it was big, very big, but it made no sound, no move. At first, the officers at the border laughed. One ship, alone, from humans. This was nothing to worry about. But then, something happened. The station near the ship stopped talking. It went silent. 1 minute, voices were clear. The next minute, there was nothing. No signal, no warning, just silence. The Empire's commanders were confused. They sent a small team to check. The team went close to the border. They tried to contact the station. No answer. They looked at the human ship on their screens. It did not move. It just floated in space like a shadow, like it was watching. The team got closer. They sent a report. The station was still there, but it looked different, as if something was wrong, but they couldn't explain what. Then the team also stopped talking. That was when the Empire stopped laughing. In the control center, alarms rang. Leaders gathered to talk. They argued. Some said it was just a broken machine. Some said maybe it was a trick, but others felt something cold in their hearts. It was not normal. It was not a joke. Something had changed. The Empire sent more ships, but not close, just far enough to watch. They zoomed in on the strange ship. It was black, with no lights. Its shape was smooth, almost like a knife. It looked old, but also strong. No one had seen a design like this before. People began to talk. Soldiers whispered stories. Some said it was not just a ship. Some said it was alive. Others said it was a warning. The Empire kept trying to contact the ship. Still, no answer. It did nothing. It just stayed there. 1 day passed, then 2, then 5. The Empire's leaders became nervous. This was not normal. If it were an attack, it would have happened already. If it were a message, it would have come. But this, silence, was worse. A high-ranking commander ordered a test. One of the nearby ships would shine a harmless light at the human ship. Not a weapon, just a signal, to see if it reacted. The ship did not react. But a moment later, the screen showed the light had stopped. It had disappeared, like it never existed. The team tried again. Same result. It was not a weapon, but something stopped it. Something powerful. Then the human ship moved. Just a little. A small turn. Nothing big. But to the watchers, it felt huge. Every camera locked onto it. Every soldier watched. And then, it stopped moving again. This small action caused fear. Not because of what it did, but because of what it could do. The Empire did not know its purpose. They did not know who sent it. They did not know why it was here. People began to ask questions the leaders could not answer. Why now? Why here? Why alone? Was this ship lost, or was it waiting? On nearby planets, some people began to leave. They didn't want to stay close to the border. Some transport ships quietly left space stations. They didn't tell the Empire. They just left. Whispers spread across the stars. This is not just a ship. It's watching us. It's waiting for something. Back in the Empire's capital, the Emperor called a secret meeting. Only a few were allowed to attend. They watched the video of the ship. They listened to the silence. And they felt something strange. Not anger, not confusion, but fear. And in all that silence, in all that waiting, one question was on everyone's mind. What is that ship here for? The strange ship remained at the border, silent and still. Days passed, But the feeling of worry only grew deeper across the Empire. Inside command centers, officers stayed awake for long hours. They stared at screens, waiting for something, anything, to change. Yet the ship did not speak. It did not move again. Still, its presence was heavy, like a shadow that never left. The leaders of the Empire began to argue. Some said it was a test from the humans. Some said it was only a machine that had lost its way. But no one really believed those answers. Deep down, they knew something was different. A group of scientists was sent to study the recordings. They looked at the ship's surface, its shape, its movement. What they found made them quiet. They said the ship was not new, but it was not damaged. Its design was unlike anything they had seen before. No rust, no wear. It looked like it had been sleeping, and now it had opened its eyes. The Empire's council called in experts, old commanders who had fought in wars many years ago. One of them, a quiet man with tired eyes, stood before the room and said something that froze everyone in place. "I've seen that ship before." The room went silent. He spoke slowly. Years ago, he said, in a far-off system, his fleet had been ordered to watch a human zone. Nothing strange had happened for months. But one day, that same ship appeared near them. It didn't attack. It only floated, just like now. His fleet was told to move closer. He paused. "We never reached it," he said. "I don't know what happened. Our systems failed. My ship stopped working. But the others, they didn't return." Everyone in the room listened without breathing. "When I woke up," the man continued, "my ship was far from the area. There was no sign of the others. No answer to any call. It was like they were taken away. Not destroyed. Just gone." No one spoke after that. The room remained still. Outside, across the Empire, people began to hear the stories. In cafes on ships, in quiet corners of the galaxy, the name of the strange ship started to spread. No one knew what it was really called, but they gave it a name, the Silent One. Mothers whispered it to their children. Workers spoke of it during breaks. Pilots checked their scanners twice before jumping near the border. It was not fear like before a storm or a battle. It was a slower kind of fear, one that sank deep and stayed. Some believed the ship was not from this galaxy. Others said it was waiting for a sign. A few even said it was listening, learning about the Empire. The Emperor sat in his private chamber, watching the reports. He saw the maps, the data, the growing number of empty ships near the border. His advisors told him not to act without understanding. But he knew the truth. His empire had never faced something it could not speak to, bribe, or threaten. This was new. This was quiet. The Empire sent small drones to watch from a distance. They floated near the strange ship and recorded everything. They picked up small changes, tiny flashes on the ship's surface, slight hums like whispers in space, but no clear answers. Then, something strange happened. One drone picked up a sound. It was not a message, not a voice, just a tone. Soft, steady, repeating. It played for exactly 1 minute, then stopped. The sound was clear, yet impossible to understand. The scientists studied the tone. They tried to match it with every known signal. Nothing fit. But one young researcher noticed something. The tone had a pattern, and that pattern matched the way human children learn to speak. "It's not a message," she said. "It's a question." The ship was not just floating. It was trying to talk. The Empire held its breath. Back at the border, the stars stayed quiet. The strange ship did not move. But now, those who watched it began to see it differently. Maybe it was not here to cause fear. Maybe it was waiting for someone to answer. The question now was not, what is this ship doing here? It was something deeper. What does it want to know? The sound had stopped, but its echo remained, not in the air, but in the minds of those who heard it. The soft tone, just 1 minute long, had changed everything. It was the first sign of life, a thought from the human ship. Inside the Empire's deep research station, Many minds worked in silence. Scientists, language experts, and thinkers from faraway worlds sat together, trying to understand the strange sound. They listened to it again and again. Some closed their eyes. Some drew symbols. Others wrote numbers. But still, the meaning stayed hidden. It was not noise. It was not random. Everyone could feel it. It was too perfect, too calm, too steady. It felt patient. After many days, one old language expert stood up in front of the group. Her voice was quiet, but firm. She said the tone reminded her of something. An old story, long forgotten. A story about how the first humans spoke to stars. They used music, not words. Simple notes, patterns, harmony. Maybe, she said, this ship is not asking us to speak. Maybe it wants us to listen. The room grew still, so they began to listen, not just with machines, but with care. They slowed down the tone. They played it backward. They matched it with light. They even used water, seeing how the sound moved through it. And then something happened. In the water test, they saw shapes, circles, lines, waves. The pattern was not just sound, it was something more. It was a map. But a map to where? The shapes were unlike any star chart the Empire had ever seen. Some points matched known systems, but others did not. Some dots moved slowly, almost like they were alive. It was not just space, it was a path. The Empire's leaders gathered in secret once again. The sound had come from a human ship, but the message, if it truly was one, seemed older, deeper, maybe even beyond human. That made the Empire uneasy. If this was a message, and the Empire failed to answer correctly, what would happen? Or worse, what if this message was not meant for them at all? More days passed. The human ship remained still, just beyond the border, watching. Not speaking again, not moving. It was like the one sound was all it needed to say. Whispers began across the galaxy. People wondered if the Empire had already received a warning, or if it had been invited to something it did not understand. On hidden channels, pilots and traders shared stories. Some claimed to see strange lights near the ship. Some said their thoughts felt different when passing close to it, like someone, or something, was gently reaching inside their mind. No one had proof, but no one could forget the feeling. Back on the Empire's capital world, something unusual happened. A small child, no older than 5, was watching the broadcast of the sound with her parents. As the tone played again on the screen, the child began to hum along. Her parents stared, surprised. "You know that song?" they asked. She nodded. "I dreamed it," she said. "Last night." The Empire's leaders heard this story and grew quiet. This was not the first child to say such a thing. Across different worlds, in quiet homes and crowded cities, more children had started to hum the same tone. Some even drew the same shapes seen in the water test. No one could explain it. The ship had not spoken again, but somehow its message was spreading. Not through power, not through machines, but through memory, through thought, like a seed growing slowly. People began to wonder, had the ship been waiting all this time for someone who could truly hear it? Not the rulers, not the fighters, but someone simpler, someone who still dreamed without fear. And far from all the noise and planning, the ship sat quietly in space, watching, waiting. Maybe it already knew who would answer. Maybe that was why it came. The stars above the border remained calm. No ship moved. No alarm rang. But everyone could feel something had changed, not in the sky, but deep inside. The strange ship had not sent another sound. No new light. No clear sign. Yet across the Empire, dreams had become strange. People started waking up with pictures in their minds. Circles, lines, colors they could not name. Some felt peace, some felt wonder. Others could not sleep well, as if the silence itself had become too loud. The Empire sent a team of dream readers, specially trained minds who studied deep thought and memory. These readers visited many worlds and spoke to hundreds of people. They saw a strange pattern. The images in the dreams were the same, no matter the planet, age, or species. It was not fear, it was a message. One dream reader, a young man with a quiet smile, noticed something unusual. The dream images were always soft and calm. Unless the person had been near the ship, then the dreams changed. They showed a room. Not a scary room, but a silent one. Dark, with stars outside the window. And in the center, a single chair made of smooth silver. Everyone who saw the chair felt the same thing, that they were being asked to sit. Not forced, just gently invited. The Empire's council gathered again. The Emperor spoke little. He listened to the dream reader's report, then looked out the great window behind him. Beyond the stars, the human ship floated still. "It's asking for someone," he said at last. But who? Some wanted to send a machine. Others said to send a wise leader. But nothing felt right. This was not a call for power. This was something older, something quiet. The decision was made without loud words, just a silent agreement. They would send a listener. Her name was Kira. Not a scientist, not a soldier. Just someone who had always listened more than she spoke. Her job had been simple, helping lost travelers find their way across busy ports. But something about her felt right. She had also dreamed of the chair. When she arrived at the station near the border, the crew there looked nervous. Many had stayed away from the ship. They told stories in hushed tones, but they gave her a small shuttle. Alone, Kira entered the small craft and began her quiet trip toward the ship. As she floated closer, the lights of the Empire's station grew smaller. The human ship became larger. Its surface was dark, with soft silver lines that moved like water. There were no windows, no doors. But the closer she came, the calmer she felt. She reached out her hand, and just before touching the surface, the shuttle stopped. Not by force. It was as if the ship had gently caught it, like a hand holding a leaf. Then, without a sound, the inside of the strange ship opened. Light filled the small craft, not bright, but warm. Not gold, not white, but something in between. Something peaceful. Kira stepped forward. The floor under her feet felt like glass but softer. The walls glowed gently. There was no sign of danger. No sign of anyone. But ahead of her stood the chair. It looked just like in the dreams, smooth, silver, still. She walked slowly toward it. Each step felt like a whisper. The room seemed to welcome her, not speak to her, just accept her. She sat. The chair did not move. The ship made no sound. But suddenly, everything changed. Not outside. Inside her. She saw lights. Stars, memories that were not hers, places she had never been, worlds with skies of green, oceans that sang, beings of light and thought, cities made from trees and song, and in all of them, the same ship. It had been there before, always silent, always waiting. Kira saw what no one else had seen. The ship was not human. It had once been something else. It had traveled for ages, long before the Empire, long before humans left their own world. It had watched, listened, learned. And now it had chosen to speak, not through words, but through memory, through someone willing to sit quietly and understand. Back at the Empire station, the ship remained still. No one could see Kira. No message came. But inside the dream of a child on a far world, a new picture appeared. A silver chair. And beside it, someone sitting, smiling, listening. Kira remained seated in the chair, feeling the strange pull of the ship around her. It was not a heavy feeling, but one that settled deep within her, as if she had been here before, long ago, in a time she couldn't remember. The chair was not just a seat, but a part of something greater. It connected her to the ship in a way words could not explain. Her mind was open, yet calm. There was no fear. The ship did not rush her thoughts or demand anything from her. It simply waited. And in that waiting, Kira began to understand. The images came slowly at first, stars, shapes, and lines, each one more familiar than the last. There were worlds, and some of them were as old as time itself. Others were young, just beginning to form life. In each one, the ship had been there, silently watching, learning. This ship, though it appeared to be just a vessel of metal and light, was more than that. It was a traveler, an observer. Its purpose was not to conquer or to destroy, but to simply be. To learn, to listen. Kira's eyes were open, but she was not seeing with her physical eyes. She was seeing with something deeper. The world around her, the ship, the stars, the universe, felt alive in a way she had never known before. The images shifted. They showed her the history of the ship, long before it came to this galaxy, before it became a legend whispered across the stars. It had traveled through many places, learning the ways of life, gathering knowledge, and understanding the quiet language of the universe. But there was a question that the ship had asked long ago, and was still waiting for an answer to. Not a question about power or war, not a question about the Empire or the humans. It was a question about life, about meaning, about connection. Kira realized that the ship had been searching for someone to answer this question, but not in the way anyone expected. The answer was not something to be spoken, but something to be understood. The ship had learned, but it needed someone who could teach it something deeper, something beyond what was known. It needed someone who could speak not with words, but with the quiet understanding of all things. And for the first time, Kira understood what the ship had been waiting for. The silence, the dreams, the hum. It was all part of the same thing. The ship had been waiting for someone who could listen, someone who could understand without needing to speak. She sat there, still and calm, as the ship's presence surrounded her. It was not a cold, mechanical thing. It was something ancient, something full of life, though not in the way anyone could understand. It was not alive in the way humans were. It did not feel or think in the way they did. But it existed. It had been waiting. The deeper Kira's understanding grew, the more she could feel the weight of the ship's purpose. It was not meant to stay in one place. It was meant to travel, to learn, and to carry its knowledge to those who could understand it. But there was more. As she sat in the chair, Kira felt something shift in the air. It was like a ripple, a soft pulse, a feeling of calmness, of peace. The stars outside the ship seemed to grow brighter, but they didn't hurt her eyes. They seemed to reach out, as if they were speaking to her in a way that only she could hear. The ship was not just a vessel. It was a bridge between worlds, between thoughts, and between all things that existed. It had been waiting for someone to cross that bridge with it. Kira closed her eyes, and for a moment, the ship disappeared. She was floating in a vast, dark space, completely alone, yet surrounded by light. There were no stars now, only the feeling of endless space, and in that space, she felt something else, a deep, endless understanding. This was not a simple answer. It was not something she could take back to the Empire, or even explain. It was something far greater, something that connected every living being, every star, and every moment in time. The ship had not come to conquer. It had not come to destroy. It had come to learn. And now, Kira was learning too. Time seemed to stretch, but Kira knew it was not about time. It was about understanding. Finally, the ship's presence pulled back gently. The images faded. The room returned to its calm, glowing state. Kira opened her eyes. The chair was still there, but it no longer felt like a chair. It felt like a part of her, a part of everything. She stood up slowly, as if the movement itself was part of the larger silence. Outside, the stars had returned to their normal quiet, but Kira knew something had changed. She did not fully understand it, but she felt it. The ship was not waiting for an answer anymore. It had found it, not in the words of the Empire or in the dreams of children, but in the understanding of a single person. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps soft. The ship did not stop her. It did not follow her. It simply waited. Kira stepped out of the chamber and into the cool, soft light of the ship's vast corridor. She had felt the ship's presence around her, like an old friend, always quietly waiting. It wasn't just a place, not just a machine or structure. It was something more, something alive. Yet it was also empty. Empty in the way that a memory is empty before it's remembered. There was so much history in those walls, so much knowledge that Kira could barely understand. She paused for a moment, letting the silence wash over her. It wasn't oppressive. It was gentle. It invited her thoughts to settle. The hum of the ship was still there, like a deep, steady heartbeat that seemed to echo through her own chest. As she moved through the ship, there were no doors, no windows, just the feeling of endless, open space. The walls curved and shifted around her as if they were adjusting, responding to her presence. It was as if the ship was attuned to her in ways no other living thing could be. Kira wondered how long the ship had been drifting in the vastness of space. How many worlds had it witnessed? How many stories had it seen? And most importantly, why had it chosen her? She was just one person among billions in the Empire, yet it had called to her. It had waited for her. The hallways of the ship stretched on, curving gently, and every so often, she would catch a glimpse of the stars through the walls. But they were different from the stars she had known. These stars were not fixed. They moved, shifting slowly, as though they were alive too, reflecting the rhythms of the ship. Her mind still felt full of the images from the chair, the colors, the light, the deep, overwhelming peace that had flooded her thoughts. It was hard to focus on anything else now, but she knew she had to move forward. There was more to understand, more to learn. She continued her walk, feeling as though she were being guided by some unseen force. Eventually, she came to a small round room at the center of the ship. It was quiet, but in a way that felt different, almost intimate. Inside the room was another chair, but this one was smaller, more delicate, and it wasn't made of metal. It was made of a soft, luminous material that seemed to glow from within, like the stars themselves. She felt an urge to sit, though this chair wasn't like the one she had sat in before. This chair didn't ask for her to understand. It simply welcomed her. It was as if it recognized her presence, as if it knew she was ready for the next step in the journey. Kira sat down, and the moment she did, a soft warmth spread through her. It wasn't the same feeling as before. It was different. This time, it felt like she was not alone. There was a presence beside her. Not physical, but something more. The stars outside the room began to shift again. This time, however, they seemed to pull together, as if forming a path leading somewhere far away, deeper into the heart of the galaxy, beyond the Empire's reach. It wasn't a map, exactly, but more like a dream. Fluid, moving, changing as she looked at it. She reached out with her mind, and as if in response, the path became clearer. The ship was showing her something hidden in the farthest corners of space, a place where the stars were born, a place where the first light of the universe had formed, a place that had never been touched by any civilization. It was then that Kira understood. This ship wasn't just a traveler. It wasn't just an observer. It was a guide for those who could listen and understand the deeper rhythms of the universe. The ship had carried its knowledge for countless ages, watching the rise and fall of civilizations, learning from the patterns of the cosmos. But it was not enough. The ship needed someone to help it complete its journey. Someone who could see beyond the stars, someone who could carry the knowledge forward. It had waited so long for this moment. It had waited for someone like Kira. And now, the ship was offering her a choice. As the path of stars glowed brighter, Kira felt the weight of the decision pressing on her. She had no power, no army to command, no ships to lead. She was just one person, but the ship didn't ask her to be anyone else. It didn't want her to fight or conquer. It needed her to listen, to understand, and to help others see what she had seen. The path that the ship was showing her led to a place where there were no wars, no empires, just the pure, unbroken connection between all things. It was a place where the galaxy could heal, not with force, but with understanding. A place where the ship could finally find what it had been looking for all along. Kira took a deep breath, knowing what she had to do. She couldn't explain it. She couldn't give it words. But she understood now. This was not about her. It was about the journey, about the connection between all things. And the ship had chosen her to be its guide, to carry its message to a galaxy that had forgotten how to listen. The stars outside the room grew brighter still. The path became clearer. The ship was ready to begin again, and Kira was ready to follow. The stars outside the ship shimmered softly as if they, too, were aware that something important was happening. The path ahead was now clear, not in the way a road is clear, but in the way a feeling becomes certain. The ship was no longer waiting. It was ready. Kira remained seated in the second chair, surrounded by quiet light and gentle warmth. She was no longer just a visitor. She had become part of the ship's journey. A silent agreement had been made, not with words, not with promises, but with understanding. Far behind her, the Empire still watched from a distance. Their scanners picked up no change. The ship still floated silently near the border. But what they could not see was the shift that had already begun. Inside the ship, something changed. Slowly, like a sunrise over still water, the walls began to glow in soft colors. Colors that seemed to move like thoughts, not paint. Patterns appeared across the floor, not drawn, but grown. Shapes that looked like stars, waves, and the quiet rhythm of breath. Kira stood and walked through the room, feeling the energy gently guide her steps. It was like walking through a dream that remembered itself. She reached what looked like a window, but it showed more than stars. It showed memories. Not hers, not just the ship's, but memories from across time. Of kindness shared between strangers, of quiet moments between friends, of songs sung softly under alien skies. These were not memories of events, but of connection. Simple, quiet connections that shaped the course of galaxies in ways no one ever noticed. Kira placed her hand on the glowing surface, and for the first time, the ship responded not with silence, but with sound. It was the same gentle tone from before, but now it had changed. It was no longer a question. It was something closer to gratitude, a note of peace. The ship began to move. Not fast, not loud, just steady. From the border, it drifted slowly forward, not toward the Empire, not toward any known world, but along the path it had shown Kira, a path not written in maps, but in meaning. Back in the Empire's control stations, many watched in silence. There was no warning, no threat, just motion. For the first time, the people watching did not feel fear. They felt stillness, a quiet realization that whatever this ship was, it had never been here to harm. It had only been waiting to be heard. The Emperor received the report without speaking. He stood at the edge of his great hall and looked toward the stars. The others around him whispered, unsure what it all meant. But deep inside, the Emperor understood something few others did. The ship had taught them something, not with words, but by example. Sometimes the greatest message is not one of power or control, but of patience. The children across the Empire continued to dream. But now, their dreams were filled with light, not strange or frightening, just peaceful. They dreamed of distant stars, of floating gently through the sky, of sitting quietly beside something ancient and kind. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, far beyond the Empire's reach, the ship continued its journey with Kira still aboard. She sat once more in the silver chair, but now she did not sit alone. All around her, the quiet light of the ship shimmered softly, not just watching her, but walking with her. The ship no longer searched. It had found what it was looking for, not in machines or empires, but in a simple heart willing to listen. Kira looked ahead through the window. Stars stretched far into the distance, more than she could count, but she was not afraid. She smiled, knowing the ship would show her the way. And in that quiet corner of the galaxy, the ship and its listener moved forward. Two quiet travelers in a universe full of sound. They left no sound behind. Only stillness. Only peace.